What if the galaxy's deadliest monster wasn't born, but made? What if it didn't want revenge, but remembrance? In a universe built on lies, one human and one forgotten creation uncover the buried truth behind a secret experiment that turned children into weapons. Now hunted by empires and haunted by the past, they're not just trying to survive, they're trying to rewrite the future. This is the story of trust born in fire, of a creature the galaxy fears, and a man who dared to believe it could choose something more. If you are new here, then please subscribe this channel and show thumbs up by liking the video. Now let's move toward this wonderful story. The sky over Norix 9 was once a canvas of beauty. Twin suns bathed the planet in golden light, and massive crystal towers sparkled like stars during the day. The people of Norix were proud, peaceful, and advanced. They had learned to live in harmony with the land and had built a civilization full of art, science, and wisdom. But now, all that was gone. Smoke covered the skies. The crystal towers were broken, shattered like glass under a heavy foot. What once stood as a symbol of unity was now a graveyard of silence. The only sound that remained was the wind carrying the smell of fire and metal. Deep below the surface, in a hidden command center, General Mivra Dalkin sat with her hands shaking. Her eyes stared blankly at the screens before her, each one showing scenes of destruction. Norixian battle cruisers, sliced in half. Soldiers, the finest of her people, running and screaming before vanishing into ash. Creatures that once defended the world turned to dust in a blink. The officers around her didn't speak. Some couldn't stop shaking. One young lieutenant finally whispered, "What was that thing?" Mivra turned her head slowly. Her voice was barely audible. "We don't know. But it's not just a thing. It's a message." She paused. 3 days ago, a small mining crew reported something strange. Deep under the obsidian cliffs, they found a structure, ancient, sealed in crystal. Inside, it was a shape. Not dead, not alive, just waiting. At first, the scientists thought it was a fossil, a relic from the past. But then it opened its eyes. One by one, the outpost went dark. Rescue teams were sent. They never returned. Drones were sent. The feeds showed only fire and screaming before going black. Whatever had awoken was growing. It no longer hid in caves. Now it walked the surface, tall and quiet, covered in armor that moved like skin. Its body absorbed heat. It ignored plasma. It learned with each attack. Every strategy the Norixians tried failed. It was more than a creature. It was evolving. And worse, it was choosing its targets. It avoided children. It ignored the wounded. It studied patterns. It waited. It was no mindless beast. General Mivra stood slowly, watching a red dot move across the map on the central monitor. It's heading for the capital. It doesn't stop. It doesn't sleep. And it remembers everything. Silence followed. No one spoke because there was nothing left to say. Then a quiet alarm beeped. One of the officers looked up, puzzled. A ship? Incoming? Small? Human design? Eyes turned. A small spacecraft entered the atmosphere, burning a trail through the clouds. Mivra narrowed her eyes. They sent a human. The room filled with nervous murmurs. The Norixians had known of humans, strange creatures from a distant blue planet. Emotional, impulsive, soft, hardly warriors. But this one was different. On board the small ship, Captain Terran Voss stood at the viewing port, his face calm. He didn't wear heavy armor. No glowing weapons hung from his belt, just a long coat worn from travel and a simple scanner on his wrist. The pilot beside him looked unsure. "Are you certain, sir? That thing, it's not just dangerous. It's something else. It's not natural." Terran didn't look away from the burning city below. He simply nodded. "Then maybe it's time to try something unnatural." He picked up a small crystal from the console. A soft blue light glowed at its center. "I've seen it before," he said softly. "Not this one, but something like it." The pilot frowned. "What do you mean?" Terran didn't answer. He strapped on his gear and stepped toward the door as the ship landed. The outside world was nothing but ruins. The wind carried ash through the air. The buildings stood like broken teeth. And far in the distance a low rumble echoed, a sound like the earth itself growling. The creature was near. Terran stepped out without hesitation. His scanner pulsed, faster. Behind the cracked remains of a building, something large was moving. He walked past twisted metal and melted tanks. Around him, silence ruled. Not even birds dared to return. Then he heard it, a deep, steady thud. Then another. Footsteps. Terran stopped. His scanner flashed red. It was here. He didn't reach for a weapon. Instead, he whispered into his wrist recorder. Log 1, Norix 9, subject approaching. Unknown origin, unknown purpose. But it watches. It learns. It hesitates. From the fog, 2 lights appeared, glowing blue, not like eyes, but like something worse. The figure stepped into view, towering over the ruins. Its surface was smooth, dark, but shifting like liquid metal. Terran didn't move. He took a step forward. The creature tilted its head. For the first time in days, it didn't attack. Far above, in the command center, General Mivra stared at the screen, mouth open. It's looking at him. Terran didn't blink. He raised the crystal slowly, and the creature stopped moving. Not out of fear, out of recognition. It remembered. Ash drifted like snow as Captain Terran Voss stepped deeper into the ruins of Norix 9. Around him the silence was thick, broken only by the crackle of small fires and the distant hum of power lines still sparking in the rubble. His scanner beeped steadily, tracking something ahead, something massive. He moved with purpose, his eyes scanning every shadow. Behind the melted remains of a transport ship, the ground still glowed faintly, like it had been touched by something unnatural. Whatever this creature was, it wasn't hiding. It wanted him to find it. Terran held the small crystal tightly in his hand. It was about the size of a stone, cool to the touch, glowing faintly with a soft blue light. He didn't know exactly what it was, only that it had come from a forgotten planet, one wiped from star maps long ago. The crystal pulsed, almost like it was alive, and whenever he held it, he felt something strange. Not fear, something closer to memory, as if the crystal remembered things it had seen. He didn't fully understand it yet, but the creature out there seemed to. A sound pulled him from his thoughts. Footsteps, slow, heavy, getting closer. Terran ducked behind a piece of broken wall and waited. Through the smoke, the shape appeared again. Tall, silent. Glowing blue lines ran across its body like veins under metal skin. It paused in the middle of the street and turned its head slightly, almost as if listening. Terran took a slow breath and stepped out from cover, crystal in hand. The creature didn't move. Terran held up the glowing shard. "You've seen this before," he said quietly. The creature tilted its head. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the light across its body changed. It dimmed, shifted, flickered, not at random, but like a signal. A pattern. Back in the command center, General Mivra and her officers watched in stunned silence. "It's not attacking," someone whispered. Mivra narrowed her eyes. "It's remembering." A soft sound came from behind Terran. He turned quickly, hand reaching for the sidearm on his belt, but it wasn't the creature. A young Norixian technician, Lyra Fenn, stepped out from behind a fallen building. She looked scared, but curious. "I followed your signal," she said. "I thought you might need help." Terran gave her a sharp look but nodded. "Stay low. It's not hostile. At least, not right now." Lyra's eyes went wide as she saw the creature. "It looks like something they tried to build once, in the old war labs." "You know those stories?" Terran asked. She nodded slowly. "My mother worked in one, before they shut them all down. She used to say they wanted to make protectors eerie, but all they made were ghosts." The creature shifted its stance, still watching. It wasn't reacting to Terran like prey. It wasn't preparing to strike. It was waiting. Terran handed the crystal to Lyra. Run a scan on this. I think it's connected to whatever they made that thing from. Lyra took out her handheld device and held it near the crystal. As she scanned, strange symbols appeared on the screen. She frowned. This is a command node from a control system, but it's old, too old for any known tech. The creature suddenly took a step forward. Both Terran and Lyra froze, but it didn't attack. It pointed, one massive arm rising to gesture toward the east. Terran followed its direction. It wants us to go somewhere. Without another word, they began moving. The creature walked slowly behind them, not chasing, accompanying. As they moved through the ruins, the buildings became older, less damaged. Soon they reached what looked like a collapsed temple, overgrown with strange moss and vines. In the center, a stone staircase led underground. The crystal glowed brighter. "This is it," Terran said. "It brought us here." They entered the dark, descending slowly into a buried chamber lit only by flickering blue lights from the walls. Strange machines sat broken and rusted along the path. Some had long, empty tubes lined with wires. Others had screens that still blinked, displaying text in an ancient language. At the far end of the chamber stood a single large capsule, cracked, empty. Terran stepped forward, brushing dust from a control panel. This is where it began. He tapped the screen. A faint voice began to play, an old recording. Subject 07, projected to exceed emotional limits, suggest modification. Another voice interrupted. No more tests. No more pain. We end it. The voices fell silent. The screen went dark. Terran turned to the creature. You were Subject 07. The lights on the creature's body pulsed once. Yes. Lyra stood beside him, tears in her eyes. They didn't build a monster, she whispered. They tortured a child. Terran looked up, anger rising in his chest. And now it's all coming back. The creature stepped closer, laying one hand gently on the capsule. It wasn't rage in its touch. It was sorrow. Outside, far above, more ships began to appear on long-range sensors. But down in the forgotten chamber, a human, an alien, and a creature once called a weapon stood together. Not enemies, not strangers, but survivors of a truth long buried, and the truth was waking up. Captain Terran Voss moved carefully through the tunnel beneath the ruined temple. Each step echoed through the darkness like a drumbeat. The blue light from his wrist scanner cast long shadows along the walls, which were covered in strange carvings and faded warning signs in languages he didn't recognize. Behind him, Lyra Fenn followed closely, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. And further back, silent but steady, the creature they now called Svar moved like a ghost of the past, massive yet oddly graceful. Its glowing lines flickered gently, not like a weapon ready to strike, but like a memory trying to speak. The tunnel opened into a vast underground chamber. What they saw made them stop in their tracks. Machines of impossible design filled the space. Tall metal towers, curved walls covered in panels, glass tubes suspended from the ceiling. Some were broken, some still blinked with faint lights. And in the center of it all stood the tower. It reached up so high it disappeared into darkness. A staircase wrapped around its outside, winding upward like a spiral shell. This place had once been alive with activity. Now it was a graveyard of forgotten knowledge. Terran looked at the symbols near the base of the tower. This is the source, he said quietly. The core of whatever project made Svar, the Tower of Origins. Lyra activated her scanner. There's data still active, files, logs, I can try to access them. As she worked, Terran walked toward a nearby console. Dust covered the screen, but when he touched it, a soft click echoed, and a voice crackled through a hidden speaker. Welcome, Overseer. Access granted. A hologram flickered to life above the console. It showed an alien scientist, old and tired, with deep lines on his face and fear in his eyes. This message is for those who find what we left behind, he began. We were wrong. We thought we could build protectors, living tools that could think, learn, obey. We called it Project Riven. The image changed, showing a lab full of glowing capsules. Inside each was a shape, some humanoid, some monstrous. We pushed them, we broke them, most failed, some resisted, one escaped. Subject 07, we tried to stop it, we failed. The hologram flickered and died. Svar stood beside them now, watching the screen. Its lights dimmed, not with power loss, but something deeper. Grief. Lyra looked up. These weren't soldiers. They were children. They were taken, changed, then abandoned. Terran clenched his fists. And they buried the truth beneath a planet, hoping no one would find it. Suddenly the lights in the chamber began to flicker. A loud hum echoed through the walls. Lyra glanced at her scanner. Something's happening, we're not alone. Back above ground, the sky darkened as several large ships dropped out of warp and hovered above the ruins. Coalition warships, sleek, dark, and deadly. Inside one, High Regent Talvo stood on the command deck, arms folded behind his back. We found them, he said calmly. The human, the creature, and the old facility. Erase everything. Inside the tower, alarms began to wail. The old systems had detected incoming threats. Terran turned toward the sound of falling dust. The ground shook. They're going to bomb this place. We have to move. Svar stepped forward, placing one hand against the wall. The lights around the chamber flared as if reacting to its touch. A hidden door opened at the far end of the room, revealing a stairway leading deeper underground. They don't want us to find what's down there, Terran said, so that's exactly where we're going. They ran down the stairwell as the first blast hit the surface. The earth trembled and loose debris fell from above. When they reached the next level, they found something far more horrifying than the chamber above. Rows of cages. Some were shattered. Others still held broken remains, metal fused with bone, wires wrapped around skeletons too small to have ever been soldiers. Lyra gasped. They weren't just testing, they were experimenting on children. Terran's face darkened, and Svar was the one who got away. They found another console and Terran activated it. More recordings played, screams, commands, files marked classified. One final message stood out. Subject 0, first prototype, unmatched power. Termination failed. Subject remains at large, unknown location. Terran stared at the words. There's more. Svar wasn't the first, there's another. Lyra looked up. And if the coalition finds that one first? The ground shook again. Dust rained from the ceiling. Svar stepped between them and the exit, pointing upward. The lights on its body pulsed rapidly. Danger, warning, protect. We have to leave, Terran said. He copied as many files as he could onto a portable drive and turned to Svar. You ready? Svar nodded once, then crouched low. Terran climbed onto its back, clutching the drive. Lyra held tight behind him. With one massive leap, Svar launched them back through the winding staircase and into the burning light above. The ruins were on fire. Warships circled. Plasma bolts fell like rain. But Svar moved like lightning, dodging blasts, shielding the others with its body. They reached a clearing where a shuttle waited, hidden beneath a shield. The pilot's voice came through the comms. You're cutting it close, Captain, Terran shouted back. We have what we need. Open the hatch. As the ramp dropped, Svar jumped once more, landing them safely inside. The door sealed and the ship shot upward, dodging fire as it climbed into the sky. From the viewing window, they saw the tower explode in a final blast of light. Lyra looked down in silence. They tried to bury the truth. Terran held up the drive. But it's not buried anymore. Svar sat in the corner of the ship, quiet, watching them both. It wasn't a weapon. It was a witness, and the galaxy had no idea what was coming next. Stars stretched into streaks outside the window as the shuttle raced through deep space, leaving the burning ruins of Norix 9 behind. Inside the small ship, silence settled like a blanket. Terran Voss sat near the back, holding the data drive tightly in both hands. It felt heavier than it should. like it carried not just files but 1,000 buried voices. Beside him, Lyra. Fen was still catching her breath, her face pale and thoughtful. Across from them, Svar sat quietly, its glowing blue lines pulsing slowly, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't speaking, because it didn't need to. Its silence said everything. Terran uploaded the data drive into the ship's system. Screens lit up, showing maps, reports, and hidden files from Project Riven. Lyra scrolled through them, her eyes wide. There are dozens of sites like the one on Norix 9, she said. Different planets, different codes, different subjects. She stopped on one file. This one, Subject 0. It was the first. Stronger, smarter. But they lost control. Completely. It disappeared. Terran leaned forward. If Subject 0 is still alive, and if it's like Svar. He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. In the far corners of the galaxy, the truth was beginning to spread. Before they left, Terran had triggered a wideband transmission, sending the recovered files to every neutral system, every border colony, every independent news network he could reach. And people were starting to read. Whispers of hidden labs, of children turned into machines, of survivors like Svar. They moved faster than any warship could fly. Inside the Coalition High Command, panic grew. High Regent Talvos shouted orders across the control room, demanding systems be shut down, messages deleted, evidence erased. But it was too late. The truth was already echoing through the stars. Councils argued, ambassadors resigned, soldiers refused to fire. Whole colonies demanded answers. Meanwhile, Terran's shuttle arrived at a quiet station hidden in the rings of a forgotten planet. There, they regrouped. They needed time, resources, and allies. And that's when the first call came in from a planet called Drinos. A farmer had seen something strange near the edge of his fields. Something tall, glowing faintly blue, watching but not attacking. A second message followed, from a mining moon where workers had vanished, only to return days later claiming they had been helped by a shadow of light. The patterns were spreading. Svar watched each message in silence. Terran noticed how it seemed to focus more whenever one of the reports came in. "You know them, don't you?" he asked. Svar didn't move at first. Then, slowly, it raised its hand and tapped. 3 glowing dots on its chest, then pointed outward. There were others. Not all were kind. Not all had survived with memory intact. Terran stood and paced the room. If these other subjects wake up, and the wrong people find them first, Lyra nodded, it won't be a war. It'll be extinction. That's when the Coalition fleet arrived. Dozens of ships surrounded the station. The lead vessel sent a message. Terran stood before the hologram as the face of High Regent Talvos appeared, cold and angry. "Captain Voss," he said, "you are holding a dangerous experiment. Surrender it, and we will spare the lives on your station." Terran stared back calmly. "He's not a weapon. He's a person. You made him. You hurt him. And now the galaxy knows." Talvos leaned forward. "You think truth protects you? Truth destroys order. Without fear, we lose control." "That's the idea," Terran replied, and cut the connection. Within seconds, the attack began. Plasma fire lit the black of space. The station's defenses fired back, but they were outnumbered. In the chaos, Svar stood up. Its body pulsed with growing energy. Terran turned to him. "You don't have to fight. You've done enough." Svar looked at him, then pointed to the door. "I see," Terran said, nodding. "Together, then." They launched from the station in a small pod. The enemy ships closed in, but Svar was already moving. Faster than any missile, it struck the first warship like a thunderbolt. It didn't destroy, it disabled, tearing power cores from hulls, freezing weapon systems with pulses of energy. Terran followed, moving through ships like a shadow, planting EMPs and rerouting systems to stall the fleet. The battle wasn't just strength, it was skill, precision, purpose. And then, something unexpected happened. The attacking ships began to pull back. Not because they were defeated, but because they were confused. Why wasn't the creature killing? Why was the human helping? A new fear settled over them, not of monsters, but of being wrong. Back at the station, broadcast showed the battle live. Across the galaxy, people watched as a weapon fought to protect, not destroy. As a human, stood beside it, not in control, but in trust. Terran and Svar returned, battered but alive. The station cheered, but they knew this wasn't over. Lyra approached with a message. "We found another site," she said. "This one, it's waking up." Terran looked at Svar. "Ready?" Svar's lights pulsed once. Yes. They boarded the next ship, destination unknown. Because now, they weren't just hunting the past, they were protecting the future, and the truth that echoed across the stars would never be silent again.